Screen Blur.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss the good, the bad, and the savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlacher.
And get off my lawn. You can never keep a straight face.
I just never know how you're going to respond and like how to react to it. I know why you did Clint Eastwood.
I did Clint Eastwood for any reason anyone else would do Clint Eastwood because he's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good Clint Eastwood? I
he filmed Gran Torino in Detroit, close to where I grew up. And one of the kids that I used to teach dance to plays his grandson in the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Fun fact about my life.
But to be completely honest, I did a Clint Eastwood impression because the film we're talking about this week is a play on classic spaghetti westerns. And I say spaghetti westerns because the definition of this film was a ramen western.
The first ramen western.
Who doesn't love a description like that? A ramen western? So the film we're doing this week is a classic film called Tampopo. That's right. I said it, Tampopo.
Not Pompoko, which was what I keep thinking of. That is a different Japanese film.
I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head what a word like Tampopo would honestly mean.
It means dandelion.
Well, see, we could have figured that out through the power of the internet, but I would not have known. I really did not know when I first read what Tampopo had meant.
No, really, we saw the name and we saw ramen western and we were...
That's it.
That's all we needed.
That's all you need. A ramen western, and immediately I'm thinking, yup.
This is the movie
that's
for us.
the one.
We did just eat ramen last weekend, too, so it's on the mind.
But for real, though, this movie, I cannot wait to talk about the details of this movie that will suck you in through the comedic elements and the classic plays on westerns, on
not even westerns, like tons of it, like film tropes. I mean, you got some romance, you've got some like gangster, you've got sex. There's lots of like tropes that they play on in this movie.
But it does all kind of wrap around the elements of what a western film does have.
Yeah.
So it is crazy. It is really crazy what this film does. We'll talk about it. We will talk about the details. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about our side slurps. And if this is your first time listening, our side slurps are the things we have been doing other than watching the film of the week, Tampopo. Things like watching other movies, other shows, maybe listening to some new music, maybe... I have been trying to fly to the moon. I don't own a spaceship yet. But when that happens, I'll let you know when I start flying to the moon. Laura, what have you been up to this past week?
I was in a bit of a reading slump, as I kind of talked about last week, but I'm getting back into it. So I'm currently reading Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. It is like a rom-com. It's about obviously she is a weather woman, a news anchor, what are they called? Meteorologist at a news station in Seattle. And it's just about her and, she suffers with depression and like dealing with things in her life, but also her and her coworker try to parent trap their bosses who are divorced. So they're trying to like get them back together. But while doing that, her and her coworker kind of get together.
Ooh.
It's cute. It's like Parent Trap meets, I don't know, any other rom-com you can think of. So I read a big chunk of that actually this morning. I'm like mostly done. So we'll be done with that soon. Talking about things to do outside of the house, I took a yoga class this week, which I'm very excited about. And I think I'm going to start going to every Thursday from now on.
Hey, who doesn't want to do some yoga, eases the mind, a little meditation?
Well, that's exactly what it was. So it's great because it's at this place that really, the place that I go to focuses on therapy, but they also have yoga classes that they provide to the general public. And what that means is that the yoga classes are very much focused also on like you're saying, meditation and like yoga in itself is like a meditative practice, but this one I feel like just takes it like a little step further. So you have a yoga practice for like 45 minutes, and then usually like the last 15 minutes is legit just like meditation, guided meditation. And it's so nice. I felt so relaxed. It's just the perfect way to end like a stressful work week and kind of set yourself up for a nice weekend. So it was a lot of fun.
That's great. And I think meditation and yoga, even just the thought of the yoga itself, is just a very relaxing physical exercise.
Yeah.
So
But you feel it. Like my body's sore.
you're killing two birds with one stone
Exactly.
because you're relaxing and you're working your body
I'm working
out.
my mind and my body at
Exactly.
the same time. So again, I'm really excited about that class. Like I already signed up to go back again. And then in the realm of media consumption, nothing really new. We've just kind of been continuing watching a lot of the shows that we've talked about before. So Under the Banner of Heaven is a really big one that Adam and I are into right now about murder that happens within the Mormon community in Utah. Super good. I think we're almost done. Like we only have 2 episodes left. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that show wraps up. We're also watching Old Enough on Netflix, which I am obsessed with. I think we've talked about that before, about young Japanese children who kind of go on their first errands. It's just so cute and so heartwarming. And then lastly, we started one of our trash Netflix reality shows, and that is the newest season of The Circle.
Oh, man.
Who's your favorite in The Circle right now? Who do you want to win?
I actually really enjoy Allie because she's real and she's not lying about who she is. She hasn't told any lies about who she is. However, everyone else thinks she is lying in some way. Most of the people do, at least.
Wait, which one's Allie?
And it's the one that's a sex coach.
Alyssa? Is her name Allie? I don't remember names. You're probably right. I really like Young Lee. I can't remember names. Sorry, obviously.
You might be right.
I think maybe Alyssa.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Well, her. I know who you mean. I like her too. I feel like it's always the first 4 that people like connect with and like. Because I even like what's his name that's playing as his mom, as Carol. I think he's great too.
Oh, yeah, the guy who's playing as Carol? Yeah.
Yeah, he's fun. Who's playing his mom? Frank is fun.
I also enjoyed Brew, though, because...
Yeah, and he's a famous TikToker.
I mean, we're hosting a podcast right now.
And he's a radio person.
Shouldn't we enjoy another radio person?
Root for Brew.
Yeah.
No, that's very true. But I think that's it for my side slurps. I'm really excited. We haven't started it yet. I think we're trying to get through The Circle, but they just put out a US version of the show Love on the Spectrum, which you and I really liked the original series set in Australia. Very excited to start Love on the Spectrum US. We'll do that maybe this week. What about you, Adam? What have you been slurping this week? Other than coffee.
Yeah, I do slurp a lot of coffee throughout the week.
I've cut back, so I'm better, but we do slurp a lot of coffee.
You trying to call me out now?
No, I was saying I slurp a lot too, but I've been better. I've been doing like 1 a day.
Other than slurping caffeine to keep me going in the morning or in the afternoon, because, hey, afternoon coffee is never a bad idea if you don't have it in the morning. Sometimes having that afternoon coffee fix helps you get your stuff done at night.
A good pick-me-up.
Yeah, I love afternoon coffee because sometimes I don't drink coffee in the morning. And sometimes I go about my day not having that morning coffee fix, the morning cup of joe. Then you just do it in the afternoon. Then you just get your productivity done at night. What's wrong with that? Nothing. That's all I got to say about that. Other than coffee, let me just say this past week, I have been preparing my stream deck for some live streaming. And not just myself either. This is going to be live streaming for myself and for, you guessed it, the show. For Screen Slurps. We're doing some live streaming. We announced it a few weeks back that we're going to start live streaming this show. But it will be coming along, and you can learn more about that through our social media. If you have not already started following us on social media, just want to point that out there at Screen Slurps on pretty much every social network out there.
Pretty much.
So just check it out. We will be live streaming the show. Other than that, I have just started watching the television series Invincible. And boy, I love things like that show. I love animated television.
Adult
And
animated television,
that's
too.
true.
Like,
Invincible's very
specifically
much
that.
adult
Yeah.
animated television. But hey, take it back to, the Fairly Odd Parents or SpongeBob or something. I'll still
I
watch
thought you were
it.
going to say Dexter. Dexter's Lab.
I'll still watch that too.
That's great.
That might as well be adult animation.
That's true.
The old Cartoon Network shows.
Du fromage.
Omelette du fromage.
That was quite adult.
Those shows were hysterical. But Invincible, this show is really sucking me in, and it really only took the first episode of Invincible to really blow my mind, and I was not expecting the way that first episode went.
Cliffhanger at the end really changes the whole pace of the show.
I will not spoil the first episode of Invincible, but just know that it really takes a twist on you, and you will get sucked into the show if you like adult animation. It is fantastic, and it's based on a book that the writer of the book is also doing the show. It's just fantastic. Now I want to go buy all of the comic series. So I cannot express enough how cool I think it is. I'm going to finish watching all of the series that's on television right now. I'm sure they're going to make more of it. I cannot wait to continue watching it. Other than Invincible, I just gotta say that I have been listening to a lot more records lately. I took a little bit of a break from listening to vinyl and went back to just listening to Spotify all the time, because who doesn't? Who doesn't listen to digital
the
media?
Convenience of it, right?
Exactly.
But the experience is different.
I 100% agree. And listening to my records again, it just feels right. We can start an argument about what's better, analog or digital, and I'm going to take the side of the analog on this one, because listening to a record, I think it's so much better. It's just such a better feeling to sit there and listen to your record. It just gives you a much better feeling, I think. If you want to start a discussion about this, start talking to me online. I'll fight about it. And that's really what I've been up to this past week. That is my side slurps. And with that being said, that brings us right into our review of our movie this past week, Tampopo. Tampopo was released November 23rd of 1985. It was directed by Juzo Itami. The screenplay was by Juzo Itami, and it was produced by
Juzo Itami. He
Juzo
does
Itami.
it all.
Produced by Juzo Itami, Yasushi Tomoki, and Seigo Hosogo. Starring...
We're going to try, people.
I'm going to do my best. Starring Tsutomu Yamazaki, Nobuko Miyamoto, Koji Yakusho, Ken Watanabe, and Rikiya Yasoko.
It's pretty good.
Rikiya Yasoka.
Pretty good. Nobuko, who plays the title character, Tampopo, is actually Itami's wife.
Really?
I saw that. I think he's passed away, because I think it said late Itami's wife. But yes, she was his wife.
Were they married when they made this movie?
I think so. I didn't look into it too much, but I believe so.
Okay.
So he had maybe they met filming, or maybe they were already married. But this was only Itami's second film, which I think is saying a lot, because this movie, as we'll get talking about it, I don't want to give away too many things too early, but that's great. Like, for this to only be a second film is wow.
I think that really says something, because what I think that is saying a little bit is probably he is contemplating making a movie at that time, more or less, I would assume. And already what is happening is they're already making these, quote, spaghetti western films. And what spaghetti westerns were they were western films that were mostly being made in Europe, from Italian directors, and they had kind of created this genre of western cinema,
like American western, right? They're trying to recreate like the Clint Eastwood and the John Wayne films.
Well, the spaghetti westerns were all being made between 1965 up to about 1979. The film with
It's Escaped the
Get Off My Lawn
with Clint Eastwood.
The film with Clint Eastwood.
with Get
$1
Off My
another,
Lawn. Oh yeah, the Fistful of Dollars,
Fistful of
and
Dollars.
all of those ones.
Yeah. So those were all part of the spaghetti western movement and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And with all of those films coming out and being made by these European directors and things like that, I feel that was something that Juzo Itami was then seeing. They're all being sucked up by these other people then too, this big popularity contest of spaghetti westerns. And I feel that Juzo Itami is then thinking, you know what? These are all so popular. Why not do this sort of play on this quote spaghetti western with a ramen western,
No,
with
I
this comedic
definitely
element.
think you get the feeling that it's a bit of satire. So I agree. I think he was seeing what was happening with spaghetti westerns, because it's 85, so kind of after that. And he was like kind of making fun of it a little.
Yeah.
But in a serious way, because at the heart of it, this movie is like a food movie,
Yeah.
and there's romance and there's lots of aspects to it, but at the same time, you can kind of see aspects where you can tell he's poking fun of kind of tropes that are used in the spaghetti western or even other types of American or Hollywood movies.
Exactly. I mean, it's still a bit of a western. It's still got
definitely.
that western element, but that's the satirical play on it, is that the main guy, which I believe was the character Goro, he looks like he's a cowboy basically the entire film. He talks like one, he walks like one.
He's like the Japanese version of Clint Eastwood, essentially.
Yeah. And by no means is he even a cowboy. Like, it's not like he's got a horse or anything. He's a truck driver.
But that's what's funny about it, right? Like, his steed is his truck.
Yeah.
You're exactly saying, it's a Western, though. He's this mysterious stranger that, like, rolls into town and saves the helpless woman, right? Like, that's the whole point, the main plot of this movie. It is a Western. It's just, he's a truck driver instead of a cowboy. And instead of being in, the Wild West, it's in Japan at a ramen shop.
Yeah. It's hysterical on one hand, and on the other hand, you're really getting all these elements of a Western. I shouldn't even say on one hand it's hysterical. I mean, it's hysterical.
It's a funny movie.
It is a very funny movie.
It's billed as a comedy, so I mean, obviously. But it's not a slapstick comedy. It's like a smart comedy.
Yeah.
Because it's satire. It has that level of like, I want to say intelligence, but you know what I mean? You have to like think a little. But not all the time. Sometimes it does just have straight up funny little bits.
Right. And I thought it was funny too in not the very beginning of the film, but when you're first introduced to Goro's character and he comes into Tampopo's ramen shop when it was failing, and it's Lai at the time. Goro goes into Tampopo's ramen shop, and in her shop there's these thugs and gangsters or whatever in there, and the one guy who's in there, and he's drunk and he's not being helpful at all. He's just sitting there and he wants to pick a fight with Goro. And as Goro tells him that if he wants to fight, he can just ask for one. And he flicks the piece of food at him. And the sound effect that it makes as it hits his face is kind of like... Psh.
Not even that. The sound effects used throughout this movie. There's the one scene too where like the ramen shop people are taking off their hats and it's like... And like when they were slurping, remember they was doing like
it's
that
like a
weird
zip
like
line.
zip. Yeah,
it's like sounding like a slurp at first, and then it just sounds like a zip line. It's slurping, and then all of a sudden just
yeah. It's so good. Like, what's that instrument with the thing you pull that makes that noise?
Oh yes,
like,
yeah. Yeah, and that again is just a extreme parody element in this movie. Like, that is the satire play in this movie with the sound effects that's just poking fun at westerns. And if you could put in, I mean, there are gunshots in this movie, but I was going to say if you could put in just hokey gunshots and things like that, there are actual gunshot sounds in this movie. Yes. But it's just kind of like the sound effects that are in this movie that are just poking fun at certain scenes and certain elements. They do it. They do and they're
ridiculous noises, but they have purpose in this movie.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't feel out of place, which I think is what it's just so well done. We've kind of been alluding to it, but maybe we should tell the listeners what the plot is in case they haven't seen this movie yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So the plot, simplified for this film, is that two Japanese milk truck drivers help a restaurant owner learn how to cook great noodles. Which the two Japanese milk truck drivers, the characters in this film, Goro and Gun, help Tampopo, who is the restaurant owner, with her noodle shop, which in the beginning is called Lai Lai. That is her ramen noodle shop in the start of this film.
Mm-hmm.
And as this film begins, I think the very beginning of this film is one of my favorite parts of this entire film. And that's because in the opening of this film, you don't even see any of that when this film first begins. When this film, the very beginning of this film, starts in a movie theater. And we see a man in a white suit with a white hat.
Yakuza.
And he's there, yeah. And he's there with, whether it's his girlfriend
lover,
or his lover, we'll call it that. And they're about to watch a movie, and they sit down in a theater seat, and we've got the camera looking right at them. And they actually end up breaking the fourth wall, as we say, and looking straight at us, straight at the camera. And they begin talking to us, saying, you know, oh, you're about to begin watching your movie. And they start describing how you may enjoy watching film at a movie theater, or how you may enjoy the atmosphere when you watch movies. And in his description, he's saying at a movie theater, you more or less probably like it when it's quiet and people aren't crunching on snacks and rustling bags and things like that. And as he describes that, of course, there's someone in the audience that's rustling a bag and being loud. So he stops looking at the camera for a second. He goes over to that guy and really kind of rustles him up.
He's like, if you make this noise once the movie starts, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. And then he goes back to his seat and then continues to explain that there's a story that is told that when the moment right before you die, it is said that your entire life goes before your eyes like a movie. And then after he explains that, he's like, shh, be quiet, my movie's about to start. And it's kind of like this metaphor almost, where it's like, wait, are you saying that you're dying right now, or your movie in the movie theater is about to start? And then the actual movie begins.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great opening. It's kind of like a quirky or smart way for Itami to be like, get ready, audience. You're about to watch something and you need to pay attention, you know, and don't fuck around.
Yeah.
Like, pay attention to this movie.
I think it's really cool, because that was my thought. I'm like, wait, is he saying that he's dying right now and I need to shut up? Or like, is the actual movie beginning? And of course the actual movie's beginning. It cuts away from his character and the movie starts.
But the interesting thing about this movie is that it comes back to those characters. So like what we explained, the main plot of Tampopo trying to, you know, sort of make her ramen restaurant better, that's only part of this movie. Like throughout the movie, we get these little vignettes or like short skits of completely different characters each time, and just their stories that somehow relate to food. So the gangster and his lover we see several times interspersed throughout the film, but the other ones are just like one-off little bits about different people. And it's just, it seems like it would be very haphazard having all of these different storylines, I guess, that don't really connect. But at the same time, again, it like plays into the whole idea of the movie, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering though, if you took out all those vignettes, how long the actual scenes are that like pertain to the main plot. Like how long the movie would be if we only had those scenes.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because the main scenes are still a good portion of the film.
But there's quite a lot of the little vignettes.
That's true. That is true. But I did enjoy the side vignettes, and one that I enjoyed other than the Yakuza man in his white suit was the one where we have a teacher trying to describe eating etiquette, and she's being very specific with a whole class of students around a table on eating spaghetti properly and how you cannot make any slurping noises because that is rude and very improper to make any noise whatsoever. You cannot make a sound.
It's rude in America. It's not rude in Japan. Just they're taking etiquette classes for like outside of Japan. It's quite polite to slurp in Japan. They want you to slurp.
But they're just saying in the film that you cannot make noise. And
yeah, but they specify that it's etiquette for like the U.S.
But still.
Anywho's.
They were saying don't make any noise. And then right next to them at another table, a man is sitting there slurping very loudly. And then she would go back to trying to teach them don't make any noise, don't make a sound. And then the man at another table somewhere else would slurp extremely loud. And it would just bounce back and forth until finally her class would just start slurping all the noodles.
They go ham on that spaghetti.
They just stopped caring.
I think my favorite little vignette was the old lady in the grocery store who was just squeezing all the food. And then you have the grocery store worker trying to catch her. But she's just walking around like squeezing the fruit, squeezing the cheese.
Trying to find her. He's looking around the aisles like where
like
she
an
is.
Old lady.
And she just goes up to the food, just squeezing all the food.
I don't know why I found that bit to be really funny.
It was really strange.
I liked that one. That was one of my favorites.
Yakuza man in the white suit, though, him and his lover, that was such a interesting scene to put in the film, though.
Listeners,
because
there's some food play scenes.
Yeah,
if you know what we're saying.
That was something because, they're just taking different foods and having the time of their lives.
I was reading a review for this movie, and they focused a lot on the scene with the egg yolk, which so the Yakuza man and his lover pass an egg yolk between each other's mouths. And they were I thought it was so interesting the way this article was talking about it and how it's just an implicit act. It's just them passing an egg yolk. It's not anything vulgar, but at the same time, what it's portraying is something very explicit, right? And then at the end, the egg yolk bursts and essentially she orgasms. It's this cool interplay they do of showing something that's, like I said, not vulgar. They're fully clothed. They're just standing there. They're not even really kissing, essentially, right? Their lips don't touch much.
Right.
But what it's implying is something so explicit and so sexual. It's just a really interesting scene. I remember when we were watching it, though, I was like, Adam, what are they doing?
Yeah, but they make it look so raunchy.
Yeah.
They're hardly doing anything, again, but just with that egg yolk going between the two of them, it's just a matter of the mind to see that and think, oh, wow, they are really...
There was tension.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. I didn't like when he put the crawfish on her belly or whatever.
That was something new.
I don't want that.
Yeah, that's something different to try.
It makes me think of it. Wasn't it in Saw? It's a horror film thing, right? Where they put the rabid rats and they eat their way through their stomach.
Oh,
you trap them against the people's stomach and it eats its way through. That's what I was worried about.
The crawfish doing that?
I was like, this is no longer sexual. He's tormented. And they're coming for her. I was worried. My other favorite little vignette, too, was in the very beginning. I think it was really what Gunn was reading a book in the very opening. And it's about a noodle master and his student. And he's teaching him the ways of how to eat ramen. But it's not even just how to eat ramen. He talks about caressing the ramen and contemplating.
Oh, that was hysterical.
And, thanking it for what it's done. As we were watching, I was like, Adam, I'm writing all these down. We're doing this next time we go get ramen.
You have to apologize to the pork.
Yeah, you have to apologize to the pork. But you have to caress the pork also and give it affection.
Yeah.
And just rules about then eating the noodles and
noodles,
drinking
you have to stare at the pork the entire time.
It's just, I loved it so much. I thought that was such a good scene.
Yeah, there is a lot of good stuff in this movie, and especially as they are trying to teach Tampopo how to become better at making ramen.
So that's, the point of the movie is Goro and Gun show up at this ramen shop. They eat the ramen. It's not that great. And they essentially agree to help Tampopo, perfect her ramen. And we get this nice kind of Rocky-esque montage of her becoming a better ramen chef.
And Goro basically becomes her mentor.
Yeah.
which is hysterical because Goro just looks like this off-brand truck driver cowboy.
Like, what does he know about ramen?
Yeah, what the hell does he know about ramen? And something, clearly, but I don't know how.
But he makes her go through these, like, training exercises.
Yeah,
like
she's carrying a whole thing of a whole barrel of
broth,
water. Yeah,
like the broth back and forth, and like filling the bowls really quickly, and then just like and then they go and sneak around to like other ramen restaurants to try and figure out how they make their broths, or what are the strengths here, what are the weaknesses. Like it's like a spy movie a bit. Like this is another one of those like. It's trying to poke fun at different genres. We get a bit of Rocky. We get a bit of a spy movie. And then at the same time, you get kind of this like seven samurai kind of thing. Because he kind of creates like a team of ramen masters to help
They'll
her.
go out back to the garbage and eat the leftover noodles and be like, oh, yeah, so
this is what they use.
They used seafood, crawfish, and this.
And they find all these random people to be part of this team to help her. Like the one guy.
Sensei.
Yeah, the sensei who's like a homeless man. And then they save this old man from choking, and he's like, oh, have my chauffeur. He's really good at making noodles. It's just like, what? But it's so good. It's this really like ragtag team that's making the perfect bowl of ramen. I loved it.
So unexpected.
I loved it.
Yeah, I was not expecting the kinds of things I saw in this movie to come out of this movie. And it was that, I think, is the definition of what makes something entertaining, is to see what I saw in this movie.
Well, and I think, too, something so important about this movie is, like, it is a food movie, right? Like, there's these beautiful shots of them making ramen or talking about the ways that it's made. And
it definitely made me hungry for ramen.
Yeah, and it's so intricate about, like, and it's intricate enough that Americans watching this now I think a lot of us know about ramen. Back in the 80s and 90s when this came out, I doubt ramen was a big thing here in the US. He's like so detailed about the process that even someone that doesn't know what it is able to like appreciate it and understand it, which I think is such a big thing. So this is a food movie, but at the same time, it's not a movie just for foodies. Like it's a food movie, but it's not all about the food. It's about
you could come out of this and make your own ramen. I mean, after watching this movie, they tell you so much about the ingredients and the making process. You could pretty much watch this movie and realize, oh, this is how you make ramen.
Well, we even learned things like we eat ramen, not a lot, but we eat ramen, but we even learned what some things are. Like when we just got it last weekend when my dad was visiting, you had asked me, you're like, what is this one thing? And I was like, I don't know. Like it looks like kind of starchy, like maybe an onion or something. And we learned in the movie it's a bamboo shoot, like
there's a difference.
It teaches you things. But like I was saying, but it's not a movie just for foodies. It's a movie about like human nature and also I think just showing like how important food is to the culture in Japan as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it seems to be like a very important aspect.
Well, to imagine how small each of those ramen shops looked and to think
there's so many of them.
To think that people would just walk in and be like, yes, one plain ramen, please. And then immediately after that, another one like garlic ramen, no this or something, or no of that ingredient. And they'd be like, okay. And then like 3 or 4 other people walk in and immediately order after that. And the expectation is that they would just remember all of that and then be able to make your ramen in 2 or 3 minutes. And they make it so
quickly. That's so quickly. I was reading, I was just kind of looking up ramen and stuff. And that is like a normality to have a lot of those little ramen shops in like the train stations and things, and people will just stop in like on their way home from work or while traveling, grab a cup of ramen and then head on their way. A bowl of ramen, not a cup, I guess, but
no, it's a bowl.
It's a bowl.
24 ounces, please.
It is. They're big bowls.
Yeah, those were a lot of noodles in that movie.
Well,
again,
and they talked
it made me
about
hungry for ramen.
Kind of getting to the end, but the way Tampopo knows that when she's like made the perfect bowl of ramen is when her team of masters finish the entire bowl. To her, that's her way of winning.
All the noodles and then slurping all of the broth.
And now I feel really bad because I feel like I can never finish a bowl of ramen. It's so filling. And I'm like, am I being rude anytime we go to a ramen restaurant now if I don't finish it? Because like it's good. I love it. I've never had a bowl of ramen I don't like. But I'm like, It's just so filling. And now I'm thinking like, shoot, I'm going to have to finish it all. I can't be rude.
Yep.
And I'm slurping.
Yeah.
I also learned maybe that I've been eating it wrong. So I got to practice that also.
Well, I can hardly use chopsticks as it is.
You're getting there. But I like to like use the spoon to get some broth, but use the chopsticks to put the noodles in the spoon and then eat it all off the spoon. But it seems like they were very much separate. Like you eat the noodles and things and then you slurp the soup, the broth out of the bowl.
They were slurping the broth with their hands, though, bringing the bowl to their face.
Yeah.
But there was a part in the film where
one guy had a spoon.
Yeah, one guy.
It's not a spoon. It's like, well, I mean, it probably is. It's like the Japanese, the thicker, big ladle kind of things. Listeners, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll watch a video. I remember the first time I went to go eat like sashimi, I watched a YouTube video beforehand to know how to eat it because I didn't want to look like an idiot. I was like, is there an order? How do I do this? And so maybe I'll watch a ramen video before we go next time.
Yeah, I mean, the moral of this film is appreciate ramen and always remember to eat all of the ramen and slurp all of the broth.
Slurp it up. Be a good slurper. Slurp up the ramen. So we get this, like we were saying, we get this really nice montage of them becoming the perfect ramen. And then at the right before she makes the perfect cup, the kind of bully from the beginning of the movie who Goro had beat up because he was harassing Tampopo, he comes back and like apologizes, and we learn he's an interior designer, and he like redoes the entire ramen restaurant for her, and he gives her the last kind of piece to make the perfect ramen. And then the film ends with the men finishing all of their bowls. I will say I was upset. There was some sexual tension happening throughout the whole movie with Goro and Tampopo. And he just left in the end.
Classic Western.
Well, that's true. I guess that's very true. That's why. But like, I was mad. I was like, he needs to stay and run this shop with her and be in love and help her raise her child. But he did no. Rode off into the sunset in his milk truck.
In his milk truck, yeah. He's got a sidekick that he's got to go work with.
Which that sidekick, Ken Watanabe. Do you know who he is? He's been in a lot of American films. Like he plays the stereotypical like hard, tough Japanese character. Like he was in Inception. He was in the Christian Bale Batman. Mm-hmm. He was in the Godzilla movies. Like he's kind of crossed over to like Hollywood. Yeah. Whereas a lot of the other people in this movie have stayed like in the Japanese film industry. Right. It looked like I didn't notice anything on their like IMDb's, their filmographies that look to be Hollywood-esque.
Yeah, and I also want to take it back to the Yakuza guy we were talking about in his white tuxedo and fedora.
Fun fact, I was reading, so it is common for like younger Yakuza members to wear really flashy and bright clothes, whereas like older Yakuza like to wear dark, more like muted clothing. So he was a young, flashy,
a very
Yakuza
interesting
guy.
Fact to share. But I also thought it was interesting to go off on to his sort of side piece that was a part of this film. His sort of story ends with him getting gunned down outside after his whole love story with his lover and food. But he's outside. He gets gunned down by some random person. We never really find out in the movie who that was. But he gets shot a few times. And as he lays outside in the rain and the storm, right before he's about to die, his lover runs over to him, trying to talk to him, let him know that he can sustain life through this and she'll take care of him. And he explains to her this recipe on how to make the perfect sausage that he was gonna, tell to her. But he also says what he had mentioned in the very beginning of the film, that his movie's about to start. As his life ends, his movie's about to start. And I thought that was so cool that they brought that back.
Yeah, it was a good way to bring it back to the beginning of the film for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about all of the little vignettes that happened, but another one I really liked is when you see like the lowly subordinate employee who's going to like a restaurant with a lot of higher up people, you know, like his bosses
Yes.
and things. And you know, I think in the work culture in Japan, it's very much that you like respect and go with whatever your boss tells you to do, right? So all of these older men at the table are like, "Oh, we're going to order the same thing. You know, I'll get what he was having, you know." And this kid comes out and is like, "Actually, I'm going to do something different." And his boss is like kicking him and he's like, "Do what you're told." But the kid's like, "No, no." And he orders all these really fancy things and like we learn that he knows all of these really intricate things about like French culinary cuisine and things. And he kind of like upstages his bosses. I thought that was a really great scene also.
I thought it was funny, though, that the bosses at the table were all ordering Heineken.
Yeah, no, I wrote that down in my notes. I was like, Heineken!
Pabst Blue Ribbon!
Oh, that's a different movie. I've had Heineken. There's so many good scenes. So like we said, there's just so many little bits and just it's heartwarming and it's funny and I don't know, you really see like the love of food and what food can do for someone.
And even a milk truck driver can be an ace at making ramen.
Yeah. Anyone can be a ramen chef.
So,
oh my God, wait. I just thought of another scene that I really wanted to talk about. When they meet the old rich man, when he's eating in the restaurant, how I said they saved his life, but how they save his life. Remember, he was like choking on food and she gets a legit vacuum cleaner.
She put a vacuum in his
and
mouth.
Like sucks it out of his throat.
I don't think that would be safe.
I don't think that works.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that to anybody
like,
to shove a vacuum tube into someone's mouth.
I don't think that would actually work. I just thought it was funny.
They put him upside down and put the vacuum
They're
tube
like
into
shaking
his mouth.
him. Like, you know, in like old comedies where they like shake a person upside down and get the change out of their wallets or their pockets. They're like shaking him and then stuck a vacuum cleaner down his throat. So good.
That does not sound like good advice. I think that brings us to our reviews of this film, our outside reviews for this film from Rotten Tomatoes. This film has 100%.
By critics, yeah.
That's impressive.
I'm not surprised. It's a beautiful film. It's something that critics love, too.
That's incredibly impressive.
I mean, even the audience score, that's at 93. That's high.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that says a lot for this film. And Roger Ebert gave this film a 4 out of 4.
Mm-hmm. He loved it.
So
I have a little quote of kind of a big, like a main point from his review. And he said, "It is a bemused meditation on human nature in which one humorous situation flows into another offhandedly, as if life were a series of smiles." I was like, wow, that's deep for Roger.
Yeah.
But like that made me think, and I was like, that's so interesting to think of it that way. This movie is like a recipe, right? You have all these different like plots and you mix all of them together and create the perfect meal.
Just like making ramen.
Just like making ramen. Bam! Itami, he was ahead of his time, man.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think with all of that being said, that brings us to our slurps up or our slurps down for this film. Slurps up meaning we recommend this film, we think you should watch it, and we think that you should add it to your must-view list of things. Eat it all up. Or slurps down meaning don't watch it. We think this movie is garbage, and it's just not good. Laura, slurps up or slurps down?
Go slurp up that whole bowl of ramen. It's this movie. I totally agree with all the critics. It was so good. Like I said, it's a food movie. It's beautiful in that way, and that you have these great shots of food, but it's like not a food movie. You know, it's about people, and it's about even just as a way to kind of look and get a deeper look maybe at the Japanese culture, like in how food plays such a big role. It's just beautifully done. And there's great scenes that make you laugh, but at the same time, your heart's full. And I honestly don't know what else to say. I told you I kind of got like Wes Anderson-y vibes with this movie. I don't think you necessarily agree. But the idea of like all these separate plots and some of the like shots that he used in the movie and just the characters, and I can't say enough. I'll stop there and just say slurps up. Slurp that whole bowl down.
And I've got no hesitation in saying I give this film a big slurps up, and I'll give my bowl of ramen a big slurps up after I watch this movie again and again and make myself more ramen to go along with each viewing I have of this film and learn to make better ramen from watching this film, because after I watch it enough times, I'll continue to think that my ramen sucks.
We should make ramen this week.
After we watch this movie again.
Okay.
This movie is incredible, and watch a few Westerns and then go watch this movie because it's just so good. I mean, I can't stop myself from saying this movie does such a great play on the Western genre. It's got comedy, it's got romance, it's got the whole 9 yards, and it's
got boobies.
That too, if you want to watch them, and you will if you watch this movie. So it's great. It is really good, and I think it covers a lot of things for what it is in this movie, and I thought it was funny, and I can't stop. I'm just going to ramble on.
We really like this movie, listeners. It's part of the Criterion Collection, so if you have access to that, you can watch it that way. Rightly so. It should be part of the Criterion.
With that being said, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies that you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So, closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlocker.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.